Alexander Cross stood at the floor-to-ceiling window of his Manhattan penthouse, watching the city lights flicker like distant stars. At 33, he controlled a tech empire worth $12 billion. His company, Crosstech Industries, had revolutionized cloud computing and artificial intelligence. Everything he touched turned to gold. Everything except his heart. 5 years ago, that heart had belonged to Emma Sullivan. She had been his college sweetheart, the daughter of a middle-class accountant, with honey-blonde hair and green eyes that seemed to see straight into his soul. Back then, Alexander had been building his first startup from his garage, working 18-hour days, dreaming of a future where he could give Emma everything she deserved. The night before their wedding, Alexander had returned early from a business trip to San Francisco. He'd wanted to surprise Emma, to steal a quiet moment together before the chaos of their wedding day. He'd used his key to enter her apartment, carrying her favorite white roses. He found her in the living room with Marcus Vaughn, Alexander's former business partner and current rival. But they weren't just talking. The scattered clothes, the guilt in Emma's eyes, the smug satisfaction on Marcus's face. It all told a story Alexander would never forget. "Alex, I can explain," Emma had whispered, clutching a blanket to her chest. But Marcus had laughed, cruel and cold. "Can you really, Emma? Or should we tell him the truth? That you've been passing him company secrets for months? That you chose the winning horse?" Alexander had stood frozen, the roses falling from his hand, petals scattering like his shattered dreams. The truth had been worse than simple infidelity. Emma had been feeding information to Marcus, helping him steal 3 of Alexander's biggest potential clients. She'd been promised a partnership, a life of luxury Marcus could provide immediately, not someday. Alexander had walked out without a word. He'd cancelled the wedding with a single email to the venue. He'd buried himself in work, using his rage as fuel. Within 2 years, he'd destroyed Marcus's company through a series of brilliant business maneuvers. Within 5, he'd become one of the youngest billionaires in America. But he'd never forgotten. He'd never forgiven. And he'd never loved again. The last person Alexander expected to see in his office was Emma Sullivan. His assistant had announced her with visible confusion. "Mr. Cross, there's an Emma Sullivan here. She doesn't have an appointment, but she says it's urgent. She says you know her." Alexander's hand had tightened around his pen. "Send her in." The woman who entered was both familiar and foreign. She still had those green eyes, but they were shadowed with exhaustion. Her clothes were neat but outdated, her handbag worn at the corners. The confident glow she'd once carried had dimmed to something closer to desperation. "Hello, Alex," she said quietly, stopping a few feet from his massive oak desk. He didn't stand. Didn't offer her a seat. "It's Mr. Cross. And you have 5 minutes." Emma flinched but held her ground. "My father is sick. Cancer. Stage 4. The medical bills have destroyed our savings. The family accounting firm is failing. We lost our biggest clients last year, and we're 3 months from bankruptcy. My mother will lose everything." Alexander leaned back in his leather chair, studying her with the same cold assessment he'd use on a failing stock. "And this concerns me how. I need a loan. $500,000. I'll pay you back with interest. I'll sign anything." "No bank would touch you," he interrupted. "I know. I checked your credit this morning after my assistant mentioned your name. You're drowning in debt. Your father's firm is worthless. You have nothing to offer as collateral." Her eyes widened. "You checked you knew I was coming." "I know everything, Emma. It's my business to know." He stood slowly, moving around the desk like a predator circling prey. "What happened to Marcus? I thought he was your winning horse." The color drained from her face. "His company went under. You know it did. You destroyed it. We broke up 4 years ago when he lost everything. He blamed me for his failures." "How poetic." Alexander stopped in front of her, close enough to see the tears gathering in her eyes. "So now you come to me. The man you betrayed. The man whose secrets you sold. And you ask for mercy. I'm asking for a business transaction, Emma said, her voice shaking but determined. I'll do anything. I'll work for you, anything. The word hung between them like a blade. She swallowed hard. Yes. Alexander smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Then I have a proposition for you. Alexander pulled a folder from his desk drawer. He'd had his lawyers prepare it that morning, as soon as he'd learned Emma was seeking an appointment. Here are my terms, he said, handing her the document. You will live in my penthouse for exactly 1 year. You will accompany me to all business dinners, charity galas, and social events as my companion. You will be available when I require your presence. In exchange, I will pay all your father's medical bills and inject $1 million into Sullivan Accounting, enough to save the business. Emma's hands trembled as she read through the contract. This says I have to quit my job, move out of my apartment, that I can't date anyone or see friends without your permission. Correct. For 1 year, your time belongs to me. This is insane. You want to own me. Alexander's jaw tightened. I want what you owe me. You took a year of my life. My trust, my business secrets, my heart. Now I'm taking a year of yours. Call it even. There's nothing in here about. She paused, color rising in her cheeks. About physical expectations. I'm not interested in forcing myself on someone who betrayed me, Alexander said coldly. Your body is your own. Though you will occupy the guest suite adjoining my bedroom, and you will maintain the appearance of a relationship in public. Holding hands, appropriate affection. Nothing more unless you choose otherwise. Emma looked up at him, searching his face for something. Mercy, perhaps, or the boy she'd once known. She wouldn't find either. Why? She whispered. You have everything. Why do you need this? Need me? Because I can, he replied simply. Because you have no other options. Because watching you pay for what you did will give me more satisfaction than any amount of money. Sign the contract, Emma, or walk away. But if you walk away, your father dies bankrupt, and your mother loses everything. The choice is yours. She closed her eyes. A single tear traced down her cheek. I need a pen, she said. Alexander handed her his fountain pen, the same one he'd used to sign the contracts that had made him a billionaire. He watched her sign her name at the bottom of each page, binding herself to him for 365 days. When she finished, he took the contract and smiled. Welcome home, Emma. Your year of penance begins now. The penthouse was a temple of glass and steel, perched on the 72nd floor with views that made the city look like a toy model below. Emma stood in the guest suite Alexander had designated as hers, surrounded by more square footage than her entire childhood home. The room was beautiful, a 4-poster bed with silk sheets, a marble bathroom with a soaking tub, a walk-in closet already filled with designer clothes in her exact size. It should have felt like a fairy tale. Instead, it felt like a gilded cage. The stylist will arrive tomorrow at 9, Alexander said from the doorway. His tie was loosened, his jacket discarded, making him look slightly more human. You'll need a complete wardrobe. I have standards. Of course you do, Emma murmured, running her hand along the designer dresses. Nothing but the best for your purchased companion. His eyes flashed. You signed the contract willingly. Willingly. She turned to face him. You gave me no choice. Save my family or let them suffer. Some will. Life is about choices, Emma. You made yours 5 years ago. Now you're making another. Own it. The words stung because they were true. She had betrayed him. Whatever he did now, she had earned. Dinner is in 20 minutes, Alexander said. The dining room. Don't be late. He left her alone in the beautiful prison. 20 minutes later, Emma found the dining room. A table that could seat 12 held place settings for 2, positioned at opposite ends like warring monarchs. The food was restaurant quality. Pan-seared salmon, roasted vegetables, a wine that probably cost more than her monthly rent used to. They ate in silence for several minutes before Alexander spoke. "Tell me about your father." The question surprised her. "Why do you care?" "I don't. But I need to understand what I'm paying for." Emma set down her fork, anger flashing. "He's dying, Alex. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. The doctors give him 6 months, maybe a year with treatment. He worked his whole life building that accounting firm, and now he's watching it crumble while he's too weak to save it. My mother sits by his bed every day, and I see her hope dying along with him. Is that enough information for you?" Alexander's expression didn't change. "And you? What have you been doing for 5 years besides watching your life fall apart?" "Working," she said quietly. "I was a marketing coordinator at a small firm. I tried to build a career, tried to move on. Marcus left me with nothing when his company failed. He blamed me for your revenge, said I'd cursed him. I've been paying off debts ever since." "You should have asked for money in the prenup," Alexander said coldly. "Oh wait, we never made it to the wedding." Emma felt tears prick her eyes but refused to let them fall. "I know what I did was unforgivable. I know I destroyed us. But I was young and stupid and scared." "Scared of what?" "Of me. Of being engaged to someone who loved you more than anything. Scared of being poor." The words burst out of her. "Scared of watching you work yourself to death while I waited and waited for our life to begin. Marcus offered me everything immediately. He was already successful, already rich. He promised me security, and I was weak enough to take it." The confession hung in the air between them. Alexander stood, his napkin falling to the table. "At least you're honest now. That's more than you gave me 5 years ago." He walked out, leaving Emma alone with her cold salmon and colder truths. The charity gala was held at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, with New York's wealthiest and most powerful in attendance. Emma wore a midnight blue gown that Alexander's stylist had selected. Elegant, expensive, and designed to make her look like she belonged on his arm. "Remember the rules," Alexander murmured as they exited the limousine. "Smile. Laugh at my jokes. Touch my arm occasionally. Make them believe you're exactly where you want to be. And if they ask how we met," Emma asked, her stomach churning, "tell them we're old friends who reconnected. It's not entirely a lie." The museum's grand entrance was packed with celebrities, politicians, and business titans. Flash bulbs exploded as Alexander guided Emma inside, his hand possessive on the small of her back. She felt a dozen pairs of eyes assess her, judge her, find her wanting. "Alexander!" A silver-haired woman in diamonds approached, her smile sharp. "We've missed you at these events. And who is this lovely creature?" "Catherine, allow me to introduce Emma Sullivan." "Emma, this is Catherine Blackwell, chair of the museum's board." Emma extended her hand, remembering Alexander's coaching. "It's wonderful to meet you, Mrs. Blackwell. Alexander speaks so highly of your work with the museum." Catherine's eyes glittered with interest. "Does he? How refreshing. Alexander rarely speaks highly of anyone. You must be very special." "She is," Alexander said smoothly, pulling Emma closer. The gesture looked romantic but felt like ownership. As the evening progressed, Emma played her part perfectly. She laughed at the right moments, made small talk with billionaires' wives, and let Alexander show her off like a prize. But the hardest moments came when the touching became necessary. "Dance with me," Alexander commanded during the orchestra's third waltz. On the dance floor, with his hand at her waist and hers on his shoulder, they were close enough that she could smell his cologne, the same scent he'd worn 5 years ago. His eyes met hers, dark and unreadable. "You're doing well," he said. "Very convincing." "Years of practice lying," Emma replied bitterly. His hand tightened on her waist. "That's not what I meant." "Isn't it? This whole evening is a lie." "I'm a lie." "Then we're both liars now." He spun her expertly, and for a moment she forgot this was revenge. For a moment, she remembered what it felt like when he'd looked at her with love instead of ice. Alex, she whispered. Don't. His voice was sharp. Don't say my name like that. Not here. Not ever. The song ended. He released her immediately, stepping back as though she'd burned him. A young man approached, handsome, wealthy by the look of his custom tuxedo. Alexander Cross. I've been wanting to meet you for months. James Hartford, Hartford Industries. They shook hands, but James's eyes were on Emma. And you've been hiding this beautiful woman from us. Shame on you, Cross. Emma is quite special, Alexander said, his tone warning. But James either didn't notice or didn't care. Would you allow me one dance with your lovely companion? Surely you can spare her for 4 minutes. Emma saw Alexander's jaw clench. This wasn't part of the script. I'd be delighted, Emma said before Alexander could refuse, needing escape from the confusing feelings swirling inside her. On the dance floor, James was charming and attentive. You're new to this scene, he observed. I'd remember you. Is it that obvious? Only because you look uncomfortable. Most of these people were born with silver spoons lodged permanently in their mouths. You look like you'd rather be anywhere else. Emma laughed despite herself. That obvious too. I recognize a kindred spirit. My family has money, but I grew up in Ohio, not Manhattan. Sometimes I feel like an imposter at these things. It was easy talking to James. Comfortable. He didn't look at her like she owed him something or like he was calculating her worth. When the dance ended, Alexander was waiting, his expression dark. Thank you for the dance, James said to Emma, then to Alexander. You're a lucky man, Cross. I know exactly what I have, Alexander replied coldly. In the limousine ride home, the silence was suffocating. He was pleasant, Emma finally said. He wants you. He was being polite. He wants you, Alexander repeated, his voice hard. And you encouraged it. I danced with him. You practically forced me to network all night. What did you expect? I expected you to remember who you belong to for the next year. The words sent ice through her veins. I don't belong to anyone. The contract says. The contract says you're mine. He turned to her, eyes blazing in the passing streetlights. For 358 more days you're mine. Don't forget it. Emma stared at him, seeing something beneath the anger, something that looked almost like jealousy. Why do you care? She whispered. If this is just revenge, why does it matter if other men look at me? Alexander looked away, jaw tight. It doesn't. I'm simply protecting my investment. But Emma wasn't sure she believed him anymore. 6 weeks into the contract, Emma woke to the sound of shouting. She pulled on a robe and found Alexander in his home office at 3 a.m, on a video call with executives in Tokyo. His hair was disheveled. His eyes rimmed with exhaustion. I don't care if the board disagrees, he was saying. We don't use exploitative labor practices. Find another manufacturer, or I'll find another director of operations. He ended the call and slumped in his chair, finally noticing Emma in the doorway. What do you want? He asked tiredly. I heard shouting. I thought, she paused. You're fighting with your board over labor practices? Go back to bed, Emma. But she didn't. Instead, she entered the office and saw what she'd missed in her weeks here. The evidence of a man who barely slept. Empty coffee cups, protein bar wrappers, documents scattered everywhere. When did you last eat a real meal? She asked. I ate at the restaurant Thursday. That was 3 days ago. Alexander rubbed his eyes. I'm busy. Building an empire doesn't allow for regular meal times. Emma recognized the exhaustion. It was the same driven intensity that had attracted her to him years ago, before she'd been too immature to appreciate what it cost him. I'll make you something, she said. I don't need. It wasn't a request. Contract says I'm your companion. Right now, you need someone to make sure you don't collapse from malnutrition. In the kitchen, Emma made scrambled eggs and toast. Simple, the kind of comfort food her mother used to make. She found Alexander had followed her, leaning against the doorframe. "You don't have to do this," he said quietly. "I know." They sat at the kitchen island together, the formal dining room forgotten. Alexander ate slowly, and Emma saw some of the tension leave his shoulders. "Thank you," he said finally. "You're welcome. I meant for not choosing the labor manufacturer. Some people would call that bad business." Alexander looked at her, really looked at her for the first time in weeks. "I built this company to prove I could succeed on my own terms. Those terms include not exploiting people for profit. Money means nothing if you lose yourself getting it." "You've changed," Emma observed. "The Alex I knew was ambitious, but you were also idealistic. I thought you'd lost that." "I thought I had too." He set down his fork. "After you left, after what happened, I told myself emotions were weakness. Built walls, made hard decisions, became the kind of man who could destroy competitors without blinking. Like Marcus." "Like Marcus," he agreed. "I crushed his company, Emma. Systematically, deliberately, until there was nothing left. And when it was done, I felt empty. The revenge I'd wanted so badly gave me no satisfaction at all." Emma reached across the counter, her hand stopping inches from his. "Then why am I here? If revenge doesn't satisfy you, why this contract?" Alexander stared at her hand, so close to his. "Because I thought maybe you would be different. Maybe having you here, watching you pay for what you did, would fill the empty space you left." "And does it?" "No." The admission seemed torn from him. "It just makes the space bigger." They sat in silence, hands almost touching, years of hurt between them. "I'm sorry," Emma whispered. "I know I've said it before, but I need you to know I'm truly sorry. What I did was unforgivable. I was selfish and scared, and I destroyed something beautiful because I didn't know how to trust it." "Why?" Alexander asked, his voice raw. "Why did you really do it?" "The truth, Emma." She took a shaky breath. "Because I didn't think I deserved you. You were brilliant and driven and going places, and I was just ordinary. Marcus made me feel special, important. He promised me a life where I wouldn't have to watch you work yourself to death wondering if we'd ever have enough. I convinced myself I was doing us both a favor. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard." "I know. I was 23 and an idiot. I thought money would make me happy. Instead, I lost the only thing that actually did." Alexander finally closed the distance, his hand covering hers. The touch sent electricity through both of them. "I don't know how to forgive you," he said. "I don't expect you to. But I don't know how to keep hating you either." Emma's breath caught. "Alex, don't." But he didn't pull his hand away. "I don't know what this is or what I'm feeling. I just know that every day, it gets harder to remember why I wanted revenge in the first place." They sat like that until dawn broke over the city. Hands joined, walls beginning to crumble. The call came during a board meeting. Alexander was presenting Crossteca's quarterly earnings when his assistant interrupted, pale-faced. "Mr. Cross, I'm sorry, but Emma is on the line. She says it's an emergency." Alexander's blood went cold. "Excuse me," he told the board, stepping into the hall. "Emma." Her voice was broken, barely coherent through sobs. He collapsed. They rushed him to Mount Sinai. "The doctors say it's time." "Alex, I can't do this alone." 20 minutes later, Alexander walked into the hospital's intensive care unit. He found Emma in the waiting room, her face buried in her hands, shaking with silent sobs. "Emma!" He knelt before her, and she looked up with red, swollen eyes. "You didn't have to come." "Yes, I did." She fell into his arms then, and Alexander held her, feeling her break apart against his chest. All the anger, all the revenge, all the carefully maintained distance, none of it mattered in the face of her raw grief. "Miss Sullivan." A doctor appeared. "You can see him now. But I must warn you, he's very weak." Emma stood on shaky legs, and Alexander kept his arm around her waist, supporting her as they walked to the room. John Sullivan looked small in the hospital bed, His skin gray, his breathing labored. Emma's mother, Patricia, sat beside him, her eyes hollow. "Mom," Emma whispered. "He's been asking for you, sweetheart." Emma approached the bed, taking her father's hand. "I'm here, Dad." John's eyes fluttered open. "Emma, my girl." His gaze found Alexander. "You brought him." "Dad, don't try to talk." "Need to." John's grip tightened on her hand. "Need to say, I'm proud of you. Always proud. You made mistakes, but you owned them. You grew up." He looked at Alexander. "Take care of her." "Dad." Emma's voice broke. "Promise me," John insisted, his eyes on Alexander. Alexander moved closer, placing his hand over Emma's, and her father's joined ones. "I promise." John smiled weakly. "Good. That's good." He closed his eyes. "So tired." "Then rest," Patricia said softly, tears streaming down her face. "We'll be right here." They kept vigil through the night. Alexander called his assistant to cancel everything, to send food for Patricia, to arrange anything the family needed. He held Emma when she cried. He brought her coffee when she grew cold. He became not her captor or her punishment, but simply the person who refused to let her face the darkness alone. John Sullivan passed peacefully at dawn, his wife and daughter at his side. Alexander held Emma as she shattered, her grief a physical force. He felt his own eyes burn because despite everything, this man had once been meant to be his father-in-law. This family had almost been his own. In the days that followed, Alexander handled everything. The funeral arrangements, the business transition, the medical bills that kept coming. He stood beside Emma at the funeral, his hand on her back as she delivered the eulogy. He welcomed mourners to his penthouse afterward because Emma's apartment was too small and too full of memories. On the third night after the funeral, Emma found him in his office, working late as always. "You didn't have to do all of this," she said from the doorway. "I know. The contract doesn't require." "Damn the contract," Alexander said roughly. "I'm not doing this because of a piece of paper." Emma walked to his desk, tears fresh on her cheeks. "Then why?" He stood, moving around to face her. "Because despite everything, despite all my anger and hurt and need for revenge, I can't watch you suffer. I can't see you in pain and not try to fix it. I'm beginning to realize I never stopped." He cut himself off, but Emma heard what he couldn't say. "Never stopped what?" she whispered. Alexander cupped her face in his hands, his thumbs wiping away her tears. "Never stopped caring. Never stopped wanting to protect you. Never stopped loving you, even when I hated you." Emma's breath caught. "Alex, I know it's insane. I know I should want you to hurt the way you hurt me. But instead, I just want to take your pain away." Emma rose on her toes and kissed him. It was soft at first, tentative, asking permission. But then Alexander's arms came around her, pulling her close, and 5 years of anger and longing and loss poured into the kiss. They broke apart, both breathing hard. "We shouldn't," Alexander said, even as he pulled her closer. "I know. This changes everything. I know. I don't know if I can forgive what you did." Emma looked into his eyes, seeing the war between his head and his heart. "I don't need forgiveness. I just need you to let me try to earn it." Alexander kissed her again, and this time neither of them pulled away. 2 months had passed since John Sullivan's funeral. The contract had 6 months remaining, but everything had changed. Emma woke in Alexander's bed. Not the guest suite, but his bed, wrapped in his arms. Morning light painted the room gold, and she watched him sleep, this complicated man who'd tried so hard to hate her. His eyes opened, finding hers immediately. "Morning. Morning." She traced the line of his jaw. "No regrets. About us?" "No." He pulled her closer. "About the contract?" "Many." Emma had known this conversation was coming. "We should tear it up." "No." She pulled back to look at him. "Alex, we're not the same people who signed it." I'm not your prisoner anymore. You were never my prisoner. And I don't want to tear it up because it's the only thing that guarantees you'll stay. Emma's heart ached at the vulnerability in his voice. You think I'd leave? After everything? You left before. There it was, the fear beneath the billionaire's confidence. Emma took his face in her hands. I was a different person then. Scared, immature, chasing the wrong things. I know what matters now. I know who I am when I'm with you. I'm better, braver, real. I need time, Alexander admitted. Time to trust this, to trust us. The contract gives me that. Okay, Emma agreed. But let's change the terms. Make it a real partnership, not a prison sentence. Alexander smiled, a genuine smile that transformed his face. What did you have in mind? They spent the morning in bed, talking and laughing and rewriting their agreement. No more rules about permissions or schedules. Just a commitment to spend the next 6 months learning to be together without the weight of revenge between them. The contract's final day arrived on a Saturday in June. Emma woke to find Alexander's side of the bed empty. She pulled on one of his shirts and found him on the penthouse balcony, staring at the city as dawn broke. You're up early, she said, wrapping her arms around him from behind. Couldn't sleep. He turned in her embrace. Do you know what today is? The last day of our contract. The last day you're obligated to be here. His eyes searched hers. At midnight you're free. You can walk away, and I have no hold on you. Emma's heart squeezed. Is that what you think I want? Freedom from you? I don't know. This started as revenge. As punishment. How can you be sure what you feel is real and not just Stockholm Syndrome or gratitude or... She kissed him, silencing his fears. I'm sure because I choose you. Not because a contract says I have to. Not because you saved my family, though you did and I'm grateful. I choose you because you're brilliant and difficult and wounded and trying so hard to be good despite everything that's happened. I choose you because you see me, really see me, flaws and all. And you're choosing to trust me anyway. Alexander pulled a small box from his pocket. Then maybe you'll choose this too. Emma's breath caught as he opened it to reveal a ring. Not the massive diamond he could easily afford, but something simpler, more meaningful. A sapphire surrounded by small diamonds, elegant and timeless. It was my grandmother's, Alexander said. The only thing of value my family had before I built the company. I want you to have it, not because you're obligated to take it, but because you want to. Emma Sullivan, will you marry me? Not because of revenge or contracts or anything but love. Tears streamed down Emma's face. Yes. 1,000 times yes. He slipped the ring on her finger, and it fit perfectly. Just like them, once all the broken pieces had been put back together. I love you, Emma whispered. I never stopped. Even when I'd lost the right to. I love you too, Alexander replied. Even when I tried not to. Even when I wanted revenge. Even when I built walls. You were always there, in every beat of my heart. They stood on the balcony as the sun rose over New York, two people who'd found their way back to each other through pain and loss and the slow, hard work of forgiveness. The contract expired at midnight. But their love, scarred, tested, and real, was just beginning.